which is to review the online quiz that you all took part in. So first of all, many thanks to Alita McKeague for putting together this quiz. Some of you met Alita in Belfast. She is a technical director of the Waldo County Soil and Water Conservation District, and you all also heard her wisdom last week when we were talking about how to prioritize invasive plant management recommendations. So Alita put together this quiz and you all took it. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of fly through this, going over the correct answers here. And I'm really going to fly through it because a lot of you did really well on the quiz. And then there were just some plants that had more incorrect answers than others. So pretty much everyone recognized this as garlic mustard. And some people even noted that this was a second-year garlic mustard, which is correct. So nice job there. Next up, we had this tricky photo, which was a little confusing. So we probably should have put something in here for scale because this is a very, very large leaf. So for those of you who might have thought that this was Canada thistle, this is just too large to be a Canada thistle. This is the leaf of a giant hogweed. And I want to just show for comparison the leaves of a Canada thistle or Cirsium arvens creeping thistle. So these are some of the leaves, and these are leaves that are, maybe 5 or 6 inches in length. So spinier leaf overall, and just really different in terms of overall size on the plant. You wouldn't make this mistake in the field. Next up, we had this horrible patch of knotweed. And, bonus points if you sort of identified this as Japanese knotweed based on the flat base of the leaves, which admittedly is a little hard to see in some of these first leaves of the season. Or maybe this is a treated patch and it's just regrowing. So that was number 3, knotweed or Japanese knotweed. Number 4, this one tripped up some folks, but this is Asiatic Bittersweet. It is a vining woody plant with sort of blunt leaves with little teeth around the edges and a little tooth at the very tip of the leaf. Even if it's a little bit more circular than perhaps you're used to seeing, Asiatic Bittersweet leaves can be kind of variable in their shape. Number 5, everybody pretty much got this. This was our Japanese barberry with those little red tic-tac-like fruits hanging below the stems. Burning bush, the fall color of burning bush for number 6 was a dead giveaway. I think we had 100% accuracy on this one. Number 7, this one tripped some people up. So this is Glossy Buckthorn. We know that it's Glossy Buckthorn because it's got no teeth on the leaves. You can also see multiple colors of fruit on the plant, and you can see some of these white lenticels along the twigs. So again, no teeth on the leaves. This is Glossy Buckthorn. The venation of Glossy Buckthorn starts off pretty straight, and it only starts to turn as it sort of approaches the edges of the leaf. Number 8, pretty much everybody recognized this as our shrubby honeysuckle, Lanisra, with its opposite leaves and paired fruits. When we were in the field, many of us saw this in flower or beginning to bud into flower buds in pairs. So again, that's a characteristic of our Lanisra spa, the invasive shrub honeysuckles. And you can almost see the hairiness on the leaves. This one, number 9, people recognized as Multiflora Rose. So it's got the white flowers clustered at the tips of the vines. It's got the horrible backward pointing thorns. It's got the fringed base of the petiole. So this is Multiflora Rose. Number 10, again, lots of people got this correct. Purple loosestrife. Here we are at the edge of a pond, it looks like. Typical kind of habitat for purple loosestrife with those spikes of purplish, pinkish flowers. And if you look closely, you can see the whorled or opposite leaves of the purple loosestrife on these stems. Multiple stems per plant is typical of an older plant. Number 11, this is the dreaded stiltgrass or Japanese stiltgrass, and we can see the silvery midrib. This was another one that people were very successful identifying, so good job please keep a sharp eye out for this species. We only know it in 2 locations, and we want to keep it out of Maine forests. Number 12, this is our ornamental jewelweed, aka pink jewelweed, aka Himalayan Balsam, with its sort of pinkish to pale pink flowers and very serrated lance-shaped leaves that are opposite or whorled on the stem. Number 13, I was impressed. Almost everybody recognized this vine as black swallowwort. This has opposite leaves that are sort of leathery in texture, and you can see in the blurry background here some of those purple colored quote unquote black flowers. They're sort of a deep purple color. That's our black swallowwort vine. Number 14, again, folks recognize this one, Norway Maple, seeing the very wide angle of the samaras, and also just sort of the overall sort of large, very many-lobed leaves. I'd probably want to walk right up to this and check out the bark and break the petiole, but the wide angle of the samara in this case is what could allow you to feel confident that this was Norway maple and not our native sugar maple. Number 15, this one was also one that people recognized as the European or common barberry. Here in this photo, it is showing the more typical teeth on the edge of the leaves, despite what some of us observed in Bridgeton, which was a leafless variety. But these complex inflorescences with many flowers hanging underneath the stem, that's different than our Japanese barberry, which typically has the flowers singly or maybe 2 underneath the stem, but not in big clusters like this. This number 16 tripped a lot of people up. So I think folks, especially folks who are with certain folks, learned about reed canary grass in the field, but this plant has leaves that are a little too broad to be reed canary grass. So this is our very, very big, tall invasive grass, Phragmites or common reed. This is just overall, again, probably should have put something for scale in this photo, but this is Phragmites rather than reed canary grass. And I'm just going to pop over to Go Botany to show some examples of reed canary grass. And I realize there's not much of a scale in these photographs either, but here in this photograph, for example, there's somebody's finger back here pulling back the leaf, and you can see that, the leaf is just not that broad. Phragmites leaves can be, an inch and a half across, and the reed canary grass just does not have the same breadth in the leaves. Here is a picture of a variegated form, again, which has strikingly broad leaves, wide leaves, but in the field, I don't usually see it with this kind of very broad leaf, and this variegated form is not common. So I understand why that one sort of tripped people up. No big deal there. You would clearly be able to identify Phragmites by the impressive height of the plant compared to reed canary grass. Number 17, this is autumn olive. Many people recognize this. We see the silvery scales and brown scales on the leaves and the 4-parted tubular flowers. This is a plant that's in bloom right now, and many of us saw this in the field. This one, number 18, this tripped some people up. So this is one of our privets, Ligustrum spa. So this is not a honeysuckle. It's not a buckthorn. It's not a Japanese honeysuckle. So we know that it is a privet because it has leaves that are entire. They're not toothed, so it can't be a buckthorn, a common buckthorn. It can't be a common buckthorn. It has leaves that taper at both ends, which is a little different than our shrub honeysuckles. Most of the shrub honeysuckles have a more oval leaf that doesn't taper at the base quite so much. And the other thing that you could look at here to help you realize that this was not a honeysuckle is the fruit. So these are last year's fruit, and you can see they're blackish, purplish berries. Our honeysuckle berries are red or orange instead of being a blackish color. So those were some clues to help figure out that this was a privet. Privets have opposite branching like a honeysuckle, but again, they're different in their leaf shape and in their fruit color. So that was privet, and we have multiple species of invasive privet. So this is one where you really only need to identify it to genus. So take a review for those folks who tripped this one up. I would check out the privet page in the field guide and try to find one of these in the field to practice with. Number 19, this was another tricky one for some folks. So this is our common buckthorn. And again, we know that it's common buckthorn and not glossy buckthorn because common buckthorn has teeth on the edges of the leaves. The venation is also different. So here in common buckthorn, the veins are arcing almost from the start. They sort of arc back toward the midrib of the leaf. Whereas in glossy buckthorn, they start out much straighter toward the edge before they arc back almost at the edge of the leaf. It's a little hard to see the branching pattern here, but if you look again, it's opposite or subopposite as opposed to glossy buckthorn, which is commonly alternate. So again, a couple different characters to help us tell the common buckthorn, this plant, from the glossy buckthorn. We'll come back to these two at the end. Number 20, people recognize this as the invasive tree of heaven. This is a canopy tree, and here we have a female tree with many of the fruit, the winged samara. And you can see those very large compound leaves of the tree of heaven. This plant, number 21, many folks recognize this as first-year garlic mustard. So it's got sort of a scalloped edge. It's sort of a delicate-looking young leaf that's very close to the ground. We had a couple thoughts about colt's foot. That is a more robust-looking leaf, and it just has an overall slightly different leaf veination and sort of texture to it. So this one is first year garlic mustard, basil leaves. Number 22. So this is porcelain berry. This is one of the woody vines that is very localized in Maine, not yet widespread. So this is a plant that can have kind of variable leaf form, but at least some of the leaves are usually pretty deeply lobed. And these, the beginning of these fruits down here in sort of the lower left part of the picture, sort of give this plant away. So this is a plant which will develop a very blue fruit when it's mature, but it goes through a sort of a purple and can be this white color as the fruit matures. So this is porcelain berry. Number 23, here we have the Myla minute vine. So this is a plant which is not yet detected in Maine at all, and we'd like to keep it out of Maine. This is a very aggressive annual vine, and it has triangular leaves with these round leaf-like structures where the leaves attach to the stem. These are called ochrea, and they're quite distinctive. You can also see the backwards pointing barbs along the stem. So people widely recognize this one as Myla minute. So good job, everybody, even though this is not a plant that most of us have seen in person because we don't have it in Maine yet. Number 24. So this one, most people recognize what was going on here. So we're trying to show the difference here between a solid pith on the right and a hollow pith on the left. These are representing the genus Lanisra, or shrub honeysuckle or honeysuckle. So that's the answer here is the shrub honeysuckles, the invasive shrub honeysuckles, or Lanisra genus. And again, the hollow pith, like on the left, is characteristic of the invasive shrubby honeysuckles as well as the invasive vine honeysuckle. And the solid pith on the right is characteristic of our native honeysuckles. Some of us saw a native honeysuckle in the field at Gorham, and it had a whitish pith, so a little different color than what's being shown here on the right, but you get the idea. All right, last one, number 25. So again, this is meant to drive home the difference between glossy buckthorn, number A, and common buckthorn, number B. So let's go over this again. So we're not showing branching pattern here, but glossy buckthorn is typically alternate, so staggered along the twig, whereas common buckthorn is typically subopposite or can be opposite. Glossy buckthorn has no teeth on the leaf edges. Common buckthorn does have teeth on the leaf edges. And the veination is different. So on the glossy buckthorn, the leaf veination starts out pretty straight and curves toward the edge, whereas on the common buckthorn, the leaf veins start arcing almost from the start. That last one is subtle, but I do find it helpful when taking an initial look at these two plants. So again, 25A is our glossy buckthorn, 25B is our common buckthorn. And that was our quiz, and I just wanted to display the aggregate results. So on the x-axis here, we're showing the number of incorrect responses. So, and on the y-axis is the number of people. So we had 58 people take the quiz, and 11 people got 100%, got 0 wrong. So nice job. We had about 15 people get only 1 wrong, and so on. So what I would say is that if you're in the group of folks who, you were up here in the 4, 5, or 7 wrong, please review, just practice. I hope that you wrote down your responses so that as we went through the quiz, you could check your answers. And if anyone, if you forgot to write down your answers and you need us to send you your answers so that you can review them, we can do that. You could contact myself, but I would just suggest again that you review. I suggest that everyone review your incorrect answers, but especially if you find yourself, in the category of folks who missed a number of questions here, that you would just review and practice your identification skills. As I said, invasive plant identification and plant identification in general just takes practice. So go ahead and practice. The other thing I want to show at this time is I would like to talk, so it's 10:20. So what I'd like to do is talk through what we're going to do next. And that includes, so I think I'll just stop sharing for a minute and just talk, and then we'll come back to this little PowerPoint here. So before I do that, I see that there's, okay, so there's some questions here. So reviewing bittersweet versus buckthorn leaves, and do you have an answer key made up that you could share? Okay, so I can review bittersweet versus buckthorn leaves quickly. That's a good question. So let's see, where was the bittersweet leaves? Yes. Okay, so here we have some Asiatic bittersweet leaves. Asiatic bittersweet leaves can be kind of variable in shape. So sometimes the tips of the leaves are very long pointed, more so, than in this example. Whereas here we see very rounded Asiatic bittersweet leaves. So again, plants can be variable depending on the habitat where they're growing.
Nancy, you're not sharing your screen, so we can't tell.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My bad. Okay, back to here, folks. Okay, here we go. Great. So now I'm sharing my screen. Thanks, Kim. Right. So in this photograph, we're seeing mostly very roundish Asiatic bittersweet leaves, but just to remember that sometimes they can be long tapering. So one quality of Asiatic bittersweet leaves is the variability. And I want to note Asiatic bittersweet is consistently alternate in its leaf arrangement. So remember to think about many characteristics of the plant, not just the shape of the leaf when trying to identify it, because common buckthorn is usually subopposite in its leaf arrangement. So instead of seeing alternate here along the stem, if this was a common buckthorn, we'd be seeing subopposite. The other thing usually that can help you, and I realize these are just pictures and so you can't touch and feel, the Asiatic bittersweet is a vine as opposed to common buckthorn, which is a shrub or a small tree. So in the field, that would be another piece of information that you would have. This picture, I guess, one could sort of maybe see that some of these are vining in form, but that might have been tricky. So I'm going to stop. I'll just scroll through the presentation so that you can see the common buckthorn leaves immediately to compare. Again, you know, using multiple characteristics can be helpful here, but the leaves of common buckthorn are more uniform in their shape. It's kind of an oval shape. You're not going to find those long tapering leaves that you sometimes find on Asiatic Bittersweet. And then the additional characters, such as the branching, the leaf arrangement. Here we have common buckthorn being subopposite as opposed to the alternate leaf arrangement of bittersweet. So I think I will stop there. And okay, so I think, and regarding an answer key, yes, so Jess, I can get you that. All right. So I am going to talk now about what we're doing next today. So if you have your agenda handy, you'll see that we're doing some miscellaneous Q&A from now until 10:30, in addition to our quiz review, which we just did. And then starting at 10:30-ish, going to about noon, we're giving you time on your own to work on writing your prioritized management recommendations for your mini plan. So hopefully many of you have had a chance already to enter your data into IMAP Invasives and to make some maps and to write the summary paragraphs, which describe the invasive plant situation on the property. But we're going to have time this morning set aside for you to continue working to create the prioritized management recommendations. So now that you've had a little time to digest, you can use that time to write those prioritized management recommendations. We're allowing a 1-hour lunch break somewhere in there, roughly 12 to 1. And then after lunch, what we've envisioned is that you would swap your draft mini plan. So again, that has 3 parts. It's got the summary paragraphs, the maps, and the prioritized management recommendations. That you would swap that with a classmate who attended the same field site as you on day 2. So I had folks raise their hand at my field site and sort of identify that they were, taking this class to prepare plans and that they were going to be writing a plan. So I hope that you have identified a buddy with whom you can swap plans and review each other's plans and give each other a call to give feedback. So this is meant to be a constructive process where you can tell your classmate, number 1, what did you love about their plan? So tell them what's really good about it. And number 2, what are things that you did differently? Number 3, what are some suggestions that you have? So again, number 1, what did they do well? What did you like? What are some things that you did differently? And then what are suggestions, constructive suggestions that you might have? So that's kind of the guidance for what we're going to be giving you time to do on your own today. If folks did not buddy up already and need assistance in pairing up, we have this Teams meeting and you can chat with one another to try to hook up like that. But right now what I want to do, we've got 5 minutes. I want to open it up to any questions about either what we're going to be doing. Oh yeah, so there's a question about how to submit. So yes, so I've got a little PowerPoint that I can share talking about how to submit the plans. Once I start sharing my screen, I can't see the chat. So Jan, I'm going to ask for your help, please, with regard to any questions that come up. So again, the 3 components of the mini plan, we've got the description of invasive plants found in paragraphs, we've got the maps, we've got the prioritized management recommendations. So those are the 3 pieces. Someone suggested to me just to remind you, this is not meant to be a work of art. Like this is for you to practice and kind of get the bones down. So please don't spend a lot of time like fussing around with adding arrows in PowerPoint on your maps and you can do that if it's helpful for you, but in terms of what we're looking for, we're mostly looking to make sure the important pieces are there, that you located the plants that are known on the property and that you map them in a format that's sufficient, and that your prioritized management recommendations make sense and are appropriate for the landowner and the species present. So again, this is not meant to be like, the A++ final quality thing that you would perhaps give to the landowner. We recognize your time is valuable and we don't need you to be filling out all the little arrows in PowerPoint. How to turn in your mini plan. So number 1, please reduce the number of files and file size, please. We'd ask that you use a file naming convention to help us not lose your plan, please. So this will be last name, first name, underscore the town where your field site was located. So, you know, Belfast, Gorham, Skowhegan, and then underscore plan for the plan part, the written part, and then underscore maps for the map part. So for example, you know, Nancy, Olmsted Nancy underscore Gorham underscore plan, Olmsted Nancy underscore Gorham underscore maps. And if you would please email them to Maddie Eberly. Maddie works for me here at the Maine Natural Areas Program, and she's going to be compiling those. So that's her email address there. Again, madeline.eberly@maine.gov. As noted previously, you know, to succeed here, your data have to be in IMAP, and these are due on Friday. I think I might have one more slide here. Oh yeah, so this is just kind of overall, you know, going forward in the big picture. If you have questions about, you know, plan identification, IMAP help, or program administrative questions, this is probably really a slide for later today, but I'll just flash it up here for right now. And I think what I'm going to do at this point is stop presenting and see if there are questions. Okay, so Greg, okay, so there's several questions about specific things in IMAP. So after data are entered in IMAP, can we make maps using ARC or other software? Brian, yes. So you can indeed, you can export your data from IMAP and use the data to make the maps in ARC or other software. That is acceptable. Greg asked, when entering polygon data in IMAP, is the number of plants field required? The answer is no. So when you enter a polygon data in IMAP, the number of plants field is not required. The second part of the question is, or is the percent cover and distribution sufficient? Yes, and in fact, preferable. So I strongly encourage you when you're outlining a shape, a polygon, the idea is that usually that means there's too many plants to count. So you would be choosing instead a percent cover or and/or distribution. So that's like the dense or I forget what the categories are. I don't have my data sheet in front of me, but trace, dense, monoculture, linearly scattered, etc. Now, if you're doing a very small polygon and you want to put the number of plants, that's just fine. If that seems to be like, if that's more accurate, then that's fine, but it is not required. Yes, so Josh, I will definitely share the contact screen this afternoon. I promise it will be up. I want to just reserve to see any other questions that come up in the chat right now. If I start sharing my screen, I can't see the chat. If anyone also wants to raise your hand, we can take your question verbally. Could you review how to see our personal data points in IMAP? Okay, so just a couple notes in general about IMAP, and then, you know, if people have specific questions, I can hang on the line and we can talk through some stuff. But I'll answer the question generally and then maybe release people to go and do their thing. So remember that data go into IMAP as unconfirmed. And so if you don't turn on the unconfirmed layer, it does not show up by default. So you have to turn it on. And the other thing that, yeah, so you need to check the unconfirmed layer. The other thing you may need to do on some of these field sites where, you know, we've got multiple people putting in data is you may need to filter by observer for your own data to show just your data, because the screen otherwise will be cluttered with many people's data. Okay, we've got lots of questions. So what if the field photos taken are not present in IMAP? So Dean, I'm assuming that what you're saying is that you took photos in the app and they did not actually come into IMAP invasives. Is that correct? Is that the problem that you're experiencing? Dean, if you want to unmute, you can just say, you know, yes or no.
Yes.
So I'm sorry that's happening. I don't know specifically what might be going on there. The first thing that comes to mind is that I wonder if the photos, if the camera setting in your phone is taking very, very data intense pictures, like if the size of the photos is very large, I wonder if that's a problem. I'm going to make a note to check with our app guru in New York to see if there's any kind of a wider problem about photos. But Dean, so for right now, Dean, just proceed, and we'll see about that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so Sherry asks, once a searched area. So I want to say right now, folks, if you do not have specific questions, please feel free to log out of the meeting. We'll be coming right back to the same meeting at 2:30 today promptly for our session on pesticide safety with Pam Breyer from the Maine Board of Pesticides Control. But if you do not have a pressing question that you want to hang on the line for, or if you're not trying to connect with people via the chat, feel free to log off at this time. And I'm going to continue to answer questions and troubleshoot with folks. So again, thanks very much for everyone's attention this morning, and go forth and write plans. But we will continue answering questions here for a little while. Okay. So Sherry says, once a searched area is created, can you later not add a not detected record? Yeah. So if you are in the multi-record searched area workflow, data entry workflow, so if you go to create record and then you choose multi-record searched area, that workflow is designed to be done all at once. So once you finish that and you create your records, that particular data entry period is closed. However, within the create record field, you can create a single not detected record. So you can create records that are not part of the multi-record searched area, and you can do that at any time. So it's fine to create a separate, it's fine to create things that are not all linked in the same data entry bout. There's no problem with that. So Sherry, I hope that answers your question. If that did not answer your question, feel free to unmute and tell me what I need to tell you.
No, that was fine. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Kyle, I'm sorry that you lost photographs also. Again, I'll make a note about this to see if there's a larger problem with the app or whether this is potentially just a photo size issue. Okay, so app losing photos, question mark. Okay. Jan, thanks so much for sharing the contact information again. So Kyle, if you want to note, Kyle Rosenberg, if you want to note which site you were at, that might help find a project swap buddy. Dan was in Brunswick and he's looking for someone to share reports. Okay, so it sounds like Dan and I'm sorry, no, it sounds like Amy and Kyle are all set. Okay, Kelsey, I have tried filtering on just my records and I have both unconfirmed and confirmed. Just my Nature Conservancy records are showing. Okay, so Kelsey, you and I may need to troubleshoot. I'm not sure what's going on there. And sorry, Kelsey, if this is a dumb question, but you have uploaded your data from your phone already to the cloud, right? There's no chance that those points are still sitting on in the app on your phone. That's something.
That is probably it. I'm going to try that. Thank you.
No problem. Tim is suggesting that an IMAP specific workshop might help in the future. Okay, thanks, Tim, for that feedback. Instructor present, time to enter data. Yeah, maybe we need like a office hours kind of thing. And folks, we are going to have for folks who are still on the line, we are going to have an evaluation form that we share at the end of the day today. So please, any of this specific constructive feedback, we're very open to it. And it'd be great if that gets captured in the evaluation form. But Tim, I will note something like sort of a office hours for IMAP with instructor. Rob asked, are you looking for a plan like you wrote or just IMAP information? Okay, so Rob, again, we're looking for a mini plan. This has only 3 pieces. I'll share my screen. Let's see here, share screen. So up. So Rob Codio, the mini plan that's due on Friday is not a full plan. It is a much smaller plan that only has these 3 pieces. So number 1 is a description of the invasive plants found in paragraphs. So that's a required component of invasive plant control practice plans. that's described in the manual and in the specifications and checklists. So describing the invasive plants found in paragraphs. Number 2, the maps, all of the maps except for the property boundary map. Those are required for the mini plan. And then number 3, the actual prioritized management recommendations section of the plan. So, prioritized management recommendation number 1, the thing we say we should do first, number 2, number 3, etc. So those are the 3 components that we're asking for the mini plan that will be due on Friday. And plus, you have to have your data in IMAP. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, where's my, oops. Back here to Teams, stop sharing. Okay, so Walker is looking for someone to share reports with from Skowhegan. Dan has got Hadley. Jessica was at Orono. Anybody from Orono?
I think Jessica and Walker have
Okay.
connected.
Terrific. And Marin looks like she's volunteering to swap with Dean. Okay, so Eleni also couldn't get photos uploaded. Okay, so maybe this is something which is more widespread. I will look into that. Another person from Brunswick, David, is looking for someone to swap with. Okay. Okay, and Sherry was at the Gorham site and she is available to buddy up with somebody. So great. So I think we've sort of answered questions. We're just going to leave the meeting open so people can continue to chat with one another. Yes, Melissa, we can definitely chat about your special field session. In fact, I think, Melissa, at this time, if you want to, you can unmute and we can chat about that now. I think we've addressed the other questions. And thanks, folks, for continuing to look each other up via the chat for swapping for buddies to swap plans with. Melissa, Shay, do you want to chat now? Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So I emailed you what I came up with, and I did the IMAP information, and I did attach the maps and that mini plan separately. So I don't know if there was any feedback you had. I'd be happy to work on it some more.
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. I have not had a chance to review it yet, but I will, and I will review it and provide you any feedback I have. Obviously, since I don't know the sites, it'll just be sort of feedback generally, but I will review it. It probably won't be this week. It'll probably be next week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Eleni asks, do Frangula ulnus and rhamnus present the same problems such as toxicity in the environment? Yeah, so good question. So Eleni, as far as I know, no one has studied to see whether the glossy buckthorn, the Frangula ulnus, has the same secondary metabolite, the amodin, that is known to cause the amphibian development problems when common buckthorn is in the area. The plants are closely related, so I wouldn't be surprised, but I am not aware of research that documents that. So I guess a conservative way to advise landowners would be that if either species is present in areas close to vernal pools, that could be a priority to get rid of those. Certainly, we know for sure that, excuse me, I have allergies. We know for sure that the common buckthorn has this emodin, which presents problems for amphibians in their completing their metamorphosis. So that is known. In terms of just the impacts on native plants, I think generally, yeah, they present the same problems in terms of being rapidly growing, fast competitors, displacing native plants. They tend to occupy slightly different habitats, or they can. The common buckthorn is an upland species. It's not found in the wettest sites, whereas the glossy buckthorn can be found almost anywhere, almost any kind of site. So They have, I would say, similar impacts on native plants, but in terms of the specific toxicity thing, I don't think we know. Okay, so it looks like the chat is kind of winding down. If there are folks in the chat who still need a partner to swap with, I'm just gonna, so it looks like we have a couple folks who may need buddies who we can try to figure that out. So somebody named Guest needs a partner for the Brunswick site. I don't know how to identify who this person is. If the person who shows up as guest would self-identify with your name. I don't even know if that person's still on the line. It looks like they are not. In terms of Skowhegan, Maddie, if you're still, is Maddie still on the call? I was going to ask her to. Maddie, you're still on the call. If you would please look in the actual field site attendance spreadsheet, and could you maybe, okay, so could you maybe help some of these folks who are trying to connect with each other? It looks like Bob Carlton needs a partner to swap for Skowhegan. Oh, I don't guess we don't have an attendance list from Skowhegan yet, so I'm not sure about that. Unless I've got one in my, oh, wait, I do.
I was there on the second day, so I can help out. I'm not, Walker was at Skowhegan, but he's already partnered up with Jessica. So,
Okay.
But I see David Dancause also was looking for a partner. He was in Brunswick, and I'm not sure if he's saying that he was the person who was listed as guest or not. That might have been Melissa Shea. But I mean, we've got some people that are partnering up that were at different sites. So maybe David and Bob Carlton can work together.
Sure. Yeah, that if you can't find someone from your site, it's perfectly acceptable. And David, I see your question about how detailed we need to be with regards to nearby waterways and public access issues. So I guess, David, in the example plan 2, I want to say it is, there is some boilerplate language regarding use of herbicides within a certain, regarding removal of plants and use of herbicides in shoreline zones or wetlands, and within a certain distance of water bodies, which you could add to a plan. I actually think we probably need to modify that. I think it should be further than 25 feet. Oh, for herbicide treatments. Okay, yeah, that's actually true, I think. So there's some text in there that you could use. The other thing to note is just that, you know, for those of you who are not licensed applicators, you know, we are not expecting you to write super detailed herbicide prescriptions as part of these plans. If you look at the example plans, you'll see that they call for a particular type of herbicide treatment, like a foliar treatment or a basal bark treatment or a cut stem treatment, but they are not getting into the nitty gritty of, you know, what product, what percent, those kinds of things. And that is acceptable. So some of the questions regarding herbicide in particular within, you know, certain distance of water bodies, et cetera, are the decision of the applicator who will be treating the site. And we don't expect people who are not licensed applicators to be prescribing those things. In fact, it might be inappropriate in some situations. So, David, if you have more particular questions about your site, feel free to either or sites going forward. Obviously this site is for practice. Feel free to for sites going forward for clients, feel free to give a call. And for this site today, if you wanted to unmute yourself and ask any questions, that would be fine. Otherwise, it looks like you saw the text I was referring to.
Tim Libby was in Belfast on day 2. He's looking to swap a partner. If anybody else out there wants to chime in.
Just real quick, I wanted to say I got a call from somebody who found my name on the list, but since I am not somebody who can help her out, since I'm a government employee, I was wondering who I should forward information along to.
Yeah. Hi, Jess. I think that she should be forwarded back to our list, and I know Jan is updating the list as fast as she can. So it sounds like we have 2 things. One, Jess, if you can just refer the potential client back to the list and apologize that we're updating the list as fast as we can.
Okay.
And then it sounds like Jan, a to-do is to remove Jesselyn Benson from the list.
Duly noted.
All right. Thanks.
Yep, no problem, Jess.
Got a couple others to take off too. So
all right. She had a general question too, I think. So I'll just give her a call back, and so she'll yeah, I'll tell her to go back to that list, but I might be able to answer her question she had too.
Great. Thanks, Jess. That sounds perfect.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, Tim, Libby, and Josh McKay. It sounds like if you're both still on the line and you're hearing me, that you two should partner up. And I see that Tim has left a number in the chat, so feel free to connect that way. And Brenda Anderson, I see your note there. I will add you to the list as well.
Yeah, so Eric, the schedule for the rest of the today is that right now we've set aside time for you all to work on your prioritized management recommendations till about noon, and then we allocated an hour for lunch, 12 to 1, and then we allocated an hour and a half from 1 to 2:30 to swap your plan with your buddy or partner and review each other's draft and then give each other a call to provide feedback. So, however, you might take 45 minutes to review and then spend 45 minutes on the phone. And then at 2:30, we're back here on this Teams meeting for the pesticide safety presentation from Pam Breyer. And we'll follow that with a program admin session. We'll wrap up by 5 p.m. So 2:30 to 5, we're back here on the Teams line. But from now until 2:30 is your time on your own to, number 1, write your prioritized management recommendations, and then number 2, have lunch. Number 3, interact with a buddy.